Hey everyone, Bill Huizenga, and trying to get some lighting here. Out, obviously, in Washington, D.C. Just walked off the House floor, and actually I don't even think the vote has concluded yet on a vote, ostensibly a rule vote, but this rule vote is going to spend an authorized spending for another $500 billion. It is sadly another cynical play by the Speaker. Let me just explain a little bit about what's going on. So we were scheduled to have a district work week this week. We then had this fiscal cliff that was created by the Democrats in the Senate and the House with both the spending as well as the debt ceiling. This is something that Mitch McConnell has talked about in the Senate, and others have been talking about getting the budget reconciliation, the $3.5 trillion stimulus spending, having a debt ceiling get rolled in. So they called us back for a standalone bill, except it wasn't a standalone bill. We had a vote on a rule tonight, and so just a little bit of procedural education here on this. Every bill that we vote on the House floor goes to the Rules Committee, and the Rules Committee does one of three things with it. It declares it to have an open rule, meaning kitty bar the door. Any amendment that you want to add to it, you can do it. A structured rule, which means they're going to decide to narrow it down to a certain set of subjects or certain parts of the bill that are going to get amended, or a closed rule, which means that no amendments of any kind are allowed. Only the bill moving forward as it's written gets to happen. Well, what they did is they wrote a rule that has three bills in it. One of them called the Pump Act. It's about nursing mothers. Another one about education. Another one about family violence. All right, which would be normally some pretty bipartisan issues. Then they rolled the debt ceiling, $480 billion, almost $500 billion in authorized spending between now and December. And what this allows the Democrats to do is to say, well, we didn't vote on a debt ceiling increase, but you did. But no, we didn't, because it was part of a rule, and we always follow procedures with these rules, and it's called self-actuating, or they deem it passed. So even though they didn't take a vote on it, it just authorized the federal government to spend another $500 billion without a single reform, without a single pause on what we're doing here, and that's tragic. In addition to all that, 45% of the House, almost half of the House, knocking on the door of 200 members of Congress, wrote a proxy out to say that they couldn't attend session today because of COVID. Now, that's the House rule. You can vote by proxy if and only if you can't travel to Washington, D.C. because of the pandemic. I know Southwest is having some hard times getting people around the country, but this is not part of it. It's not constitutional, in my opinion. It's certainly not right, and you have to question the legal ability to pass a bill without a majority of people on the House floor. Now, it's different having a proxy vote or even a remote vote in committee. The U.S. Constitution talks about how the U.S. House has to work. Because, think about this. Back in the 1700s, early 1800s, if you lived up in Boston, do you know how long it took you to get there? Or Bangor, Maine, or New York City, or down in the Carolinas, or in Georgia? If the Founding Fathers didn't want people coming together in Washington, D.C., they could have said, tell you what, just mail them. Just mail your ballots in. But that is not the purpose of the House floor or the Senate floor. It's to have people together and voting on these things. And that is the base assumption until this crew showed up, Speaker Pelosi showed up and said, well, we have a pandemic and now I can control it all. So we've had people in rowboats that have phoned in their votes. We had people on vacations doing space launches, all kinds of things that had nothing to do with the pandemic in previous votes. So I'll be curious to see what kind of stories the media turns up, if they do their job, of where people were tonight instead of being here in Washington, D.C. and canceling things back home, constituent hours or whatever it might be, and coming out to Washington, D.C. to doing their constitutional duty. So maybe I haven't been clear yet. I was a no on this because, first of all, I don't think that we have had any real kind of conversation about what we are doing on the spending side. We need to have that. I've been part of a group, a bipartisan group that I helped start. That is, it's a bipartisan budget group, and we are talking about our spending and our debt and our deficits, and we are trying to force this conversation with leadership, frankly, on both sides of the aisle, with what needs to happen for the future here, for the United States, for our kids and our grandkids. Anyway. There you go. There's the update from Washington, D.C. We'll be spending nearly another $500 billion between now and the beginning of December, right around in that time frame. There will be another cliff. We've got the continuing resolution, which is getting the authorization for all the spending is going to be expiring in early December. This is more fungible. The Treasury can do different things to extend this, but that's going to probably be sometime in December as well, early to mid-December. Here we go, pulling the rug out from under our military members and others that are trying to do their jobs by not being able to help ourselves and kick the can down the road. And it's the most frustrating part of my job. So anyway. Keep praying for our country. We need it. We absolutely need it. And I hope that this was a little helpful to understand some of the context of what's going on in the games and the cynical games. Putting this self-actuating, deem it passed increase in spending into a rule that is now going to be used against us all politically for somehow being against nursing mothers and family violence, which is complete garbage. And this is nothing to do about being inconvenienced to come out here to do a vote. In fact, that's exactly what we should be doing. This is our job, and we're not doing it. And shame on the House of Representatives, shame on Speaker Pelosi, and we need to end this practice of all these proxy votes. So we'll talk to you again soon.